Hello, I'm Steve Kuhn. I'm with Criterion. We're a human capital management software company, or HCM software, and we're happy to present our HCM solution today at the invitation of BAASS. What we're going to do today is give you an overview, as you can see by the agenda, a product overview, just some scenarios. We'll be in live software, so we can do some scenarios that might be appropriate for a day in the life of, and we'll talk a little bit about those different scenarios when we get into the software. But then we'll also dig in a little bit more about the HR administrative role in the things that can be done behind the scenes. And at the end, we'll finish up with a question and answer period. There is a chat box that you can access on your GoToWebinar box. And if you can just plug in questions that you might have there, then we'll get to them at the end. So to begin, I want to give you a little bit of a history. We've got a little bit of a slideshow because I want to go through not only who we are, but also what we do. And to start off with, Criterion itself, we've been in business for over 35 years, and we've been providing the mid-market, mid-sized companies with HR and payroll solutions over that 35 years. Primarily now that's called HCM, but we'll talk a little bit more about detail around it. Now, this is a single unified database solution, and it's designed and delivered as a true cloud or SaaS product. And it was entirely developed, designed, and by Criterion. So there's nothing third party in this. This is truly our own solution. So hopefully what you take away in the next few minutes is really this ability to have an HCM solution all in a single database that is functionally like an enterprise class solution. Hopefully you'll find that it is a very refreshing, easy to navigate solution as well. It's an open architecture so that you can build connectivity, or we in BAASS can build connectivity to virtually any other solution that you might have in a highly secure environment. So essentially, it's based on these three peers, HR, payroll, and talent. We're going to talk about the two end peers today. There is another webinar next Tuesday at this same time where we'll talk more in depth about payroll and the capabilities there, as well as more around time collection, scheduling, and things of that nature. So I'll give you just a little slide on what we can do with payroll, and if you have folks in your organization that want to do more on that or hear more on that, just have them jump on next week. Within HR, there's a variety of things that go on in that core system, and we'll talk about that comprehensive HRIS, that demographic information, documents, emergency contacts, dependents, job history, all that information that used to be called HRIS, but now is part of that HCM solution. We'll talk about registering for benefits, time off plans, whether those are accrued over the period of time based on seniority or length of service with the organization, or whether that's paid out, on a weekly check as a percentage. Get into a little bit about position management and how that ties in not only with the ability to track people's job history, but also all the information related to the position itself around pay, full-time equivalents, job descriptions, things of that nature. There are things that we'll touch on in self-service and mobile apps that we'll get into as we get into the software. Payroll, I just threw this up just to give you an overview real quick. Multi-entity, so multiple companies, multiple locations, integration to GL. And like I said, we'll get into it more in depth next week. We also have a component called talent, and this is really around that employee life cycle with the organization. Everything from applicant tracking, posting a job, having people apply, onboarding those people, giving them a task list of things to complete. Perhaps it's forms to fill out and sign. Maybe it's information around, an employee handbook. Maybe I need to go meet somebody to get a key card access to the facility. Take some learning that might be appropriate for my position as I come on. All these types of things can be done. You can also use this as a leaving tool as well if you want to track certain steps or things that employees must do as they leave the organization. Performance reviews we'll touch on briefly as well to give you an idea of what can happen there, but that's simply around whether they are goal-oriented or competency-oriented, whether they are annual, semi-annual, monthly, quarterly, whether it's a self-review, a peer, or 360 review, or a manager review, are all capable within the solution. And from an LMS perspective, as I mentioned before about onboarding and assigning courseware automatically to employees, or maybe people selecting courseware from a catalog, or matching up courses and positions and employees and seeing some sort of career path for people. The whole intent is really to make this an ideal or optimal experience for all the candidates, your employees, and your administrators. We'll talk a little bit about this up here where we talk about the 35 years of being in business, but most importantly, we want people that are clients to be actively involved in the growth and the direction of our product, and we give you that opportunity through the feature request portal so that you can suggest new features. Every 7 or so weeks, we bring out a new release, and within that new release, there is at least 20 new features or enhancements to features that were developed or suggested by our client base. We are 100% API, and if you're not familiar with that term, simply take away from this is that we can integrate with virtually any other software product out there. That's an ERP system, production system, and so forth. We can also interface with other solutions around like payroll and service bureaus, things of that nature. We can build apps to communicate with those systems, so this becomes even simply something that occurs. It's not that something that you have to do as an individual to generate this application to start. We support single sign-on as well, but mostly we're very concerned about the fact that you are entrusting us with your employee data, which is very sensitive to us, and we want to make sure we provide you with the top rated security functionality that we can provide for you. We start off with pod architecture, which is simply limits the number of clients within a particular grouping on a particular server. Then we take it a step further and we segregate that data, your data, away from everybody else's data so that they don't touch. Then we encrypt that data even at rest. And every 90 days, we refresh these encryption keys so that those keys are required to unlock that data or unencrypt the data when it's viewed by people in the system. We use Amazon Web Services, which is a tier 1 hub for supporting our applications and your data. They actually back you up continually for 30 days, and then those subsequent weekly backups are stored as long as you are a client, so that we can, if necessary, restore you back to a specific day and time. And working with Amazon, we continually do stress testing, penetration testing, and other sorts of testing to make sure that your experience using the software is optimal. So with that in mind, we're going to jump into the software, and we're going to do a couple scenarios that we've decided to show today that I think highlight a lot of the functionality within the software. So bear with me as I switch over here real quick. I'm going to bring up our HR administration dashboard. So just a note about security in general. It's the fact that you, as the client, determine what people can do in the software. There are no rules around X number of administrators or Y number of managers. It's really based on configuration of those security profiles and then assigning security profiles to the respective employees. You can have people that have limited admin function where they might be able to view data, but they can't edit. Or maybe they're limited to a group of employees within the system and so forth. So you can define what people can do, whether they can do it all the time or they have it for a limited period of time, and then you take away that access. As an administrator, though, you'll be presented with a dashboard that you can build out yourself. You can decide which one of these tiles are displayed, and so every administrator can track different key performance indicators or KPIs for their dashboard. Across the top, you'll see all the different menu options, from the drop-down menu that directs you to other programs within the software, to those menu options within the HR software alone. We're going to come back to this in just a few minutes after we go through a nice little scenario of hiring somebody or recruiting somebody, then hiring them, bringing them on board, having them go through a little bit of the onboarding practices. So to begin with, I'm going to show you just a little mock-up of what we have going on. This is a mock-up of a client's website. Okay, you're familiar with, the home, the about us, and of course there's a careers page. When somebody clicks on a careers page, they're presented with the available job postings, and you'll see they can be sorted by title or location or department. It's a variety of different options that they have available. You can view that particular job, and it will bring up all that information relative to the job description, qualifications, and so forth. So as a candidate, I can apply. Now, if I have an account with Indeed, I can simply click on that and it'll bring in all that information. If I don't, I came to the careers page, I can simply come in here and type in this information myself very quickly. So I'm going to build, a candidate. You can make these fields required or not. It just depends on how you want to collect information. I can have them attach a resume, and when I do that as well, I can also have them attach a cover letter, or they can simply type in a cover letter that they choose to. And then I hit next. Now here's where it comes in the flexibility within the system, because then you can begin to ask them questions. These are all questions that you can design. They can be, as in this case, a yes or no, okay, or a drop-down list of any sort. You can give them a date box, so that they can choose, a particular date. You can do attachments. So I'm just going to come in here and provide this attachment, more questions, and these can be used as what we refer to, or you may use the term as knockout questions. People who answer give you the answer that you're looking for will continue on in the process. Now I can also do something else. So here I've got this application, or I can request additional information from them. I can do this as they're applying for the job, or I can just do this as it becomes as they become part of the interview process. And keep in mind, I am not an HR person, so if I'm asking questions that are inappropriate, I apologize. And we've got and this is important to remember, because this information can come across and fill the database as we go through. So when we'll see this when we actually hire this person. And now I can save this. And when I save this, it'll actually submit an email to me saying, Gretchen, thank you so much for applying for this work order coordinator position, et cetera, et cetera. You get to design that email that goes out to her so that there she knows that her information has been sent. Now, if I come back over here into the product and I go down to recruiting, I can come in here and I will see here that under this work order coordinator position, I have a candidate. I can see the description of everything about this information right here about the job posting. And then I can click in here and I can actually see candidates who've applied. When I do that, okay, it was going to give me all that information that's been collected in the process. So as we come in here, you will see her resume. You'll see her questions. Okay, you'll see her cover letter. All that information, all the attachments that she sent over and so forth. So we can keep track of all of this information, as she is a candidate. And we'll retain that information as long as you want us to. So it's really up to you if you want to keep Gretchen's information on file and then someday come back to her, maybe 90 days or so later, because you found that while this particular job wasn't a good fit, there's another one that might be. You'll notice over here you can give her a subjective rating. You can also change her status. Status allows you to define when those hiring managers actually get to see her and all the information in her record, because you don't necessarily want them to see everyone who applies, only those who may be in the contacted or the interviewing process. You can also add certain things, sending them forms, having them do pre-boarding or a checklist of things to do before you come to work. So all these things can be done as well. And then you can keep track of other events that are happening in terms of interviews, phone calls, notes taken, and so forth. But what I do want to do today is I want to take Gretchen and simply create a new employee. Now keep in mind that we were in HR, now we're in recruiting. So as I create a new employee, one click, I have moved from recruiting directly into HR. And when I do that, I'm going to find Gretchen already in the database, okay, pulled over all the information that is appropriate that she's given us. So you'll see here where we're hiring her into this one employer, and we can have multiples. All this information regarding what she's given us as far as information. You can have custom fields if you want in this screen and most every screen within the software. You can come in here and she's given her address. So we can just say it's both her physical and mailing address. We're going to give it a geocode because we just want to use that for the payroll tax tables. And then we're going to hit next. And you'll see here that because we had built out this job previously, and that's the job we posted for, all this information comes across with her. So all we have to do is create an action and give it a date. We are a date effective system, and simply what that means is that we can go backwards or forwards in time, and on anything from new hires to transfers to job reassignments, pay increases, and so forth, or even terminations, we can move those forward or back. Now you notice all this information here is available, but I got this thing called employee groups. Now employee groups will define what she is going to do in terms of how to collect her time. How do we alert her of new information through our feeds? And I'll show you those in just a minute. But several things react off of what these employee groups are. You'll hear me talk about workflows. Those are also part, or assigned to employee groups. So one employee group may have one process versus another. So we'll see here that we've got all this information in. You'll see up here at the top, this is our little wizard. So the next step is onboarding. And when we click into, I have got position control turned on. Bear with me for just a second, and I will have that corrected. We have a function called position control, which allows us the ability to restrict the number of hires based on headcount. So when we do that, we can come in here and increase the head count so that we now have a proper number. You'll see here where it's 1. I'm going to raise that up, and then we can go ahead. So now we'll come in here and hang on just a second. Let me just do this. We'll do this real quickly again. I apologize for that mistake on my part on not having that locked. The good thing is it has all that information still there, so we'll continue on real quick. Now we're onboarding. The ability to add tasks is in the system so that you can create different tasks for different groups of people. For instance, you might have different trainings for or different processes for truck drivers versus craft people versus corporate employees, and you can build different onboarding task lists. I'm just going to pull from the one task list, and then you'll see all the different functions that are available around filling out forms, registering for benefits, doing different things like confirming my home address and doing my tax withholdings. All these functions can be done, and you can create more, you can add to the list, and so forth. The idea being different folks in different locations or different jobs would have different onboarding processes, and that's absolutely fine. You just simply add a different list to them or append this list, if you will. So I'm going to save. And I got to go back, hang on just a second, because I want to do this and put them in as the new hire group. And now I've created a new employee. So the only thing left I need to do is to give this employee security access. So I can enable login. Now I have set up this fictitious email address, but it's equally important if you have employees that do not have email addresses, you can give them a username and not have to use their address or an email address. I'm going to give them the employee self-service capabilities, and from there I'm just going to assign them a password rather than email their instructions to them. So once I've done that, Gretchen is now able to log in. So when I come over to Gretchen and I come here as this is your landing page, your icon or your logo, your screenshot, and so forth. And I am launched into Employee Self-Service, the home page. When I arrive at the home page, there will be several things that you can do, and we'll spend a little bit of time here just going through them. But I do want to point out that there are her tasks, And if we open this up, these are all those onboarding tasks we've listed. And you'll notice that they are listed next to a icon of green, yellow, and red, designating the urgency in which they need to get this done. So I can come in here and it says, well, I need to sign the code of conduct. So I can click on this, and it's going to bring up this code of conduct. Now, when I see this code of conduct, this is something that we built in just using our forms tool that I'll describe for you in just a few minutes. But you can see here where you can put a signature line in here, put a date in here, and so forth. Those boxes, if you noticed earlier, are red. You cannot submit the form without signing it. Okay, and then you'll just come down here to the end and you hit submit. And it will take that off of my to-do list on my onboarding task and actually launch me into the next form. The intent being is there you'll sit down and you'll process everything, boom, 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 all in succession. So now you'll see here that I come in and of course that is gone. Okay. I can also come in here and I can double check my home address. It'll take me right to that. So I can just click on this item right here, and it will give me a link to go right to my self-service, go to page, and it'll take me right to the address that I typed in. And I can either decide to update that address, or I can just go back and check it off the list. As long as it's correct, I'm good. You'll also notice there's several other things that can be done as you come down here. We'll talk about time and pay next week. And we'll also talk about things like learning, the ability to add learning. Now, because she's part of a specific group, she had learning automatically assigned to her because of that new hire group. She also has other things that she can do around performance. She can review her career, education, put in her education. She can also, track her skills and certifications as well. Personal information, she can change her contacts and so forth. Set up her own calendars around her time off if she chooses to. And there's other resources available to her. So like company documents that you want to make available to her, so they can see all the different information that can be done. We made a big push to make people aware of how they can use our solution during this COVID issue, and being able to push information out to your employees is key to keeping them engaged and knowing that they have backup from HR. So they can have company documents here that they could download. They can also go in and get links out or videos out. They can have their own forms and reports as well. And they can even find their own employee documents. So in her case, she can see all those candidate documents that she sent over. And she should also be able to see any of the onboarding information that it'll be updated in just a minute that she's completed and filled out. So that's a little bit about self-service. I will point out too that much of the functionality of self-service can be found on the mobile apps for both Android and Apple. Now, from an administrative standpoint, we're going to spend a few minutes there just to kind of give you an overview of everything, or more functionality within the HR administration. And we'll start at the end and work forward. One of the things I wanted to point out was the fact that we had that form that you saw earlier about the code of conduct. We can also do other forms in the system that allow you to reach out to employees and gather information that may not be a part of the system. So under this, I have a few things here that we use, and we'll just go into it real quick. And you'll see down here that we've got things like a family disaster plan and so forth. The idea being is that you can actually create a form, and then you could send it out to employees to allow them to update this information in the database. So this is information that's already in the database right here, but they may not have information, containing to these types of questions. And this is something that we built for our client because they needed to have information about disaster planning. Power utility company that needs to know where their employees are and what they can do. All right, are they available for work? So we can create these forms. You can as well. They're built into the software. And then if we come back over here to reports in HR administration, we can actually go in and pull detailed reports from that form. But we also are built along the lines of over 100 and some odd standard reports in the system. And we can run those reports. When we do that, you'll notice that everything comes out as a PDF. And in doing so, we can also change that over into an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file or into a HTML file. So we have the ability to simply click on here and create that file into Excel for viewing or moving or manipulating. However, if there's some of the data you need, but not all of it, you can do some ad hoc reporting in what we call data grid. So we can just simply come in here and we can create a report on the fly if we choose different modules, or if we do different tables, or even those forms. One of the forms that we did create over time, and we just did this quick survey, and I'll just give you a sense of what that looks like. These are all the different fields in regards to a COVID question. How are you doing? Well, we might want to do these and this, and we might want to see who has, been challenged by this. So we can just create this report, and as we look across, we get people's answers from this form. We can export this into Excel, we can manipulate it just slightly, and we can get that same information presented, in an Excel spreadsheet, and then we can graph it. So we have the ability to look back and see how is the organization dealing with this whole pandemic. So then we also have org charts. So we can come in here and we can certainly drill into org charts and go down and further into the software, and we can see, how every layer is reported. We can also search for employees, and we can have 4 different org chart structures built out. We showed briefly how we can have the job titles or the positions built into the software. So here we can just come in here and we can look at a particular position and come down here. We can look at the details around this position in terms of where the department is located, cost center, because all this information can be used in payroll or in other reports to costing information. Give it a target, pay range as well. Put that recruiting profile in there. So once it's added here, it goes to recruiting and is posted by that job when we go out there and post as well. You can add skills to this position of this job so we can track what skills are required. We can also track skills by employees as well. So we can do some reporting around marrying those people and jobs up. From an employee perspective, you'll notice I can come down here on the far left and I can just do a quick search, and it will bring up anybody with this particular character string. And I can pull in all the information related to this individual, starting with their demographics. So I can come in here and I can see all this information in regards to the standard demographics, addresses, but I can keep multiple addresses on people, their employment information, anything from where they work, or they can work in multiple locations, their hire date. We can go through a termination with them as well, walking through those appropriate steps. We maintain the history of everybody in your organization for as long as you have the system. But since we are a date effective solution, we can even go back and add in that history if you want to. We can help you do that. Positions, they can hold one or multiple positions in the organization. So if you have employees that get paid more than one pay rate, they can have more than one position. They can also have positions in different companies that you may have. So they may be able to move between different companies or different organizations that you might track, and they can have all of that history maintained as well. Again, we'll talk about the payroll information later on, but here are those documents. We talked about documents being able to be stored under this personnel file or under these different tabs, if you will, in the file cabinet of electronics, so that you're able to define these different tabs. We don't necessarily define them for you. These are just some suggestions in the demo. So if I wanted to look at all those candidate documents or related to benefit or medical information, then I can access those if I have the right security profile. So again, you can define what tabs these administrators can look at it, but then you can also define what tabs the employee and the employee's manager can look at as well. So it is possible that the employee could see the candidate documents and perhaps the default documents, but they don't see these other things. The manager may also see the personnel file, but they don't see the benefits or the medical. These are all designations that you can have as well. Under the advanced profile, there's additional information around onboarding. This is the task that they're doing, that they need to complete for onboarding. There's also reports as well as those dashboard tiles that will alert you to people who are delinquent or not performing those onboarding tasks in a timely manner. Keeping track of all their education. This is their formal education, but also all their training, their skills, anything relating to a certification or an expiration date. Track here so that you can be alerted to things that are going to expire in 90, 60, or 30 days, things of that nature. All the performance review history, including any notes that are taken throughout the review period under what we refer to as journal entries. Then we also have the ability to track any kind of workplace incidents, injuries on the job, and being able to do that reporting as well. So that's a little bit about the overview, a broad overview of HR and of the talent. I'm going to walk you through one or two more items since I've got about 5 to 7 minutes left before we open it up for questions. First of all, I want to take you through a little bit about the fact that this individual, this Steve right here, has the ability to do performance reviews because he's part of this workflow process that he is responsible for completing performance reviews for different individuals. So perhaps he is responsible for doing Summer Brown's performance review, and you can see here that there's questions, in regards to her passion, her productivity, and so forth. These are all user defined. You have the ability to decide what shows up in a particular form for a particular employee group for their performance reviews. So maybe they have goals that they need to reach. Maybe you're rating them based on these competencies or soft skills. All of these can be done, and then you can decide what the rating scale would be, as well as any comments that you'd wish to add. Then behind the scenes, all of these items are rated, and then they're given weight to each of these, and then a score is accumulated based on those weights and those ratings. For example, this individual right here, he has some goals, okay, and then he also has these skills, and you can see it's beginning to put together his rating based on each one of those. So that the idea being that as you rate them, it's automatically going through and calculating on what that person's overall performance rating will be. In addition, he is also part of a workflow for doing things like time off requests. So as people request time off through the timekeeping solution, he'll get an alert that somebody has requested time off. He can view that, approve it, and reject it. And when he approves it, it will go directly into their timesheet. Okay, it also will go on a calendar. That calendar can be accessed here, but it can also be set up to be posted into an Outlook or Google Mail calendar as well for further tracking or easier access. And again, you'll see all the functionality over here that he's capable of, understanding that, again, the security profile will dictate what gets turned on or accessed by the employee based on their security profile, as well as, depending on what products are licensed. So that is a general overview. I'll open it up to questions if you have any, and we'll read them out and answer as many as we can in the time remaining.
So we do have a few questions that have come in, and if anyone thinks of anything else during this period, just enter it in the chat box to the right side of your screen. So the first question we have is our data stored in Canada?
Yes. Well, I mentioned earlier that Amazon Web Services is our partner. They have a site outside of Montreal as well as one in Toronto that we use as the primary and the backup.
The next question I have is, do we have to use your payroll product?
No. We can integrate with a variety of different payroll solutions, so that's not an issue.
Can we write our own reports?
Yes, you can. So there is that ad hoc reporting capability that allows you to go in there and simply just do, like one-off type reporting. I just need to get this one little piece of information about everybody. Or there is a report writer tool available that can be used to, custom lay out a report with headers and comments and things of that nature as well.
Okay, the next question I have here is, can integrations to our current systems be built?
Well, the answer in general is yes. Okay, there's virtually very few systems that we could not interact with. We're a fully open system, which simply means that every piece of data that resides in our database can either be input from another solution, or we can push that information out to another solution. So yeah, and on those rare occasions where it's an older system that just doesn't allow for external access, then that would be the only time that can't happen.
Okay, a question that just came in as well is, can you share an example of how much time HR teams have saved with this tool?
So really, there's a lot of things that happen within HR that, first of all, it's access to information. I need to find out, who has completed this form or who has done that. That used to be a laborious process where people would have to go through file cabinets, hard copies, and things like that. It's virtually seconds. I need to find this form. I need to see who's filled it out. As I showed earlier, being able to create a form and then looking to see of all the people who have completed it, we show you that of the 68 people or 66 people or whatever it is, we've only had a handful respond. Okay, so I can find that out in virtually seconds. Now there's other, just tracking information, making sure that things are done on time. Certifications. Well, we're alerted to certifications. We don't even have to go look to see if somebody's certified. We've got that information because we know who's about to expire.
The next question I have here is, can I use this as a portal for an intranet?
For an intranet. So like if you're posting jobs internally, the answer is absolutely yes. So you can also use this. What you see here is pushing information out to employees. These feeds allow you to steer information to globally out to everyone here, okay, or just to new hires or other things, just HR announcements. So you can use this as the portal to get information directly to people. You can see here where they can have, this is actually a video that's embedded, but you can also have links. You can have attachments. So you can send information all over the organization and use it as a way to get information out. Now, the other side of that is using this as like an education portal. All right, so you come in here and you can set learning up so that you can track people's progress in courseware, who's behind and who hasn't taken courses, who's been assigned courses, assign people courses as well. So the whole system acts as an intranet, as far as storing documents, pushing documents, and so forth.
So the last question I have here is, can we import employees' history into Criterion?
Yes. Okay. Since we are a date effective system, we can bring in employee history as much as you choose to, and that's done with current employees during part of implementation, but former employees can also be brought into the system, and it's just advised that that's done after the system goes live.
Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in. So with that being said, I would like to thank the attendees for taking time out of their busy days, as well as you, Stephen, for presenting today. I hope that everyone found something beneficial during the presentation, and there will also be a recording sent out to everyone after.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope people found it interesting and informative.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.